Hi and welcome back to my little corner of the internet. Today we are starting on a beaded bag. A bag I found in an Edwardian fashion book. This is the book. This is the beaded bag I'm going to try to make the best that I can. And all of these are all my bead collection, my little pearls and beads and stuff that I pulled out of storage to make this. So I copied out the pattern onto another piece of paper. And I'm going to be using my big embroidery frame for this and some leftover silk that I found at the bottom of my fabric stash. I'm going to be putting on some interfacing or some fleece to make the silk more stable, as you can see here. And I'm going to take all of my leftover white beads or pearls, eller perler, whatever you want to call them, and I'm gonna stick all those together because I'm not sure that I have enough for one color, so I'm just going to mix and match and see how it all goes. All the white pearls together, and we're going to be using these green ones as well and these green ones to make the flower bit in the design. So far so good. I'm going to be using the white for the big part of the design, and the greens and the yellow for the flowers, and the green beads for all the big beads. Now I'm going to be putting on or tracing off the pattern that I've just made. I'm using some carbon paper. And use my little wiggly pointy tool. Let's see if it worked. It did! Ta-da! And I'm going to trace all the lines with some chalk to make them more visible and to make sure that I have gotten all of the pieces of the pattern that I want to get. All done. I'm going to give it a little spritz of some hairspray just to keep the chalk in place, and put it in my embroidery frame. It just fits. It's so awesome. And now I'm going to be starting the big task of putting all of the pearls. I'm using the one string method, putting all the pearls on one string, and then attach the string and then sew around the string with the pearls on it. You could also just take one bead at a time, but I'm just too impatient, so that's what I'm going to do at the top of the bag and on the edge. So far so good. And I did the edge as well with the same technique. But I ran out of black beads, so I ended up taking some other colors as well. This is from the other side. And now I'm going to be putting all of the big green beads. What I should have done instead was wait to do this as the last step because all the way through my putting on all of the other beads, my thread keeps catching on the big green beads, and that's pretty annoying because it kind of stops your workflow and stop your putting on beads. And so I should just had waited to do this as the last step, but I didn't, because I didn't know better. But now I do. All the green beads on. Now I'm going to try to make all the little flowers. Just marking off where the center is. And I'm going to use the same one string with beads on technique. And you can see here the thread keeps catching on all the green beads almost every time I make a string, or I make a string of beads. So yeah, I do not recommend doing that. But beside that, then it's just one bead at a time. And try not to curse yourself out because you put on the big green beads first. One done. Now I just have to put all the little green ones in first. And another thing, I probably should have put on the green beads first as well, before putting all the sides of this little flower, because I made all the flowers pointy, but they should have been more flat on the ends. But I was just following the pattern of the bag, so it gets all squished together. All done. Pearls on string, or beads on string. I use that technique all the way around on this one, but I think it looks kind of chunky and not in a good way. So I ended up just making one side because I didn't want to make the other side. And here I'm marking off the seam allowance all the way around on the back. And you should, in theory, be able to sew this together on your sewing machine, but I ended up doing it all by hand. The only thing that I did sew on my sewing machine was the lining, which is just regular black cotton, because the beads kind of make it hard to sew even though you have a zipper foot. So yeah, I've ended up sewing most of it by hand. And this is going to be the other piece of the bag. And because I'm not going to make the whole big pattern again, I'm just tracing off the outer edge and putting on some beads on the top and at the bottom with leftover beads that I have. Again, use what you have when you're not sure how you want to make stuff. And that's kind of what I did. But it ended up looking okay, even so. And I made a big string of beads, and I'm just going to sew between every third bead. Just remember to make the string long enough, or else you have to pick it up again and then put on some more beads, which is a bit tricky. And I'm just doing the same thing with this piece as I did with the other one. Here I'm putting it on top of the regular cotton, just tracing around, and then we're going to be using this as like a pattern piece for the lining. It's actually pretty simple when you get to this point. It's putting on the beads that is a bit tricky. And you're going to make a little channel where you can put in your string or your lace or whatever you want to put in, so you can close your bag as well. And that's what I'm making here out of my leftovers. It's going to be attached right there. When you sew it on one side and then fold it over, and then you can sew it by hand or sew it on a machine on the other side. And then you have a little channel to put in your lace or your whatever you want to make the closure with. And I'm going to be sewing on each side of the lining and then sew that on to the outer layer and then turn it inside out. But you'll see that in a bit. This is the little channel that I'm going to make. And here you can see I ended up sewing it all by hand all the way around, one stitch at the time, because it's all chunky with all the beads. Ta-da! Looking awesome, if I may say so myself. And this is the lining, so I'm going to be putting in the bag right side out in the little lining pocket that is right side in. And then I'm going to be sewing together the edge, or the top edge, and then turning it around. And I did this by hand as well. One stitch at the time. And here you can see the little hole that I left at the bottom of the lining, and that is going to help me turn this whole thing inside out and into each other. And I ended up cutting down between each of the little dome shapes, so I could make them all nice and round when turning over the lining. Well, here I'm sewing together the little hole that I made at the bottom of the lining, but I ended up stitching all along the top row as well, because where the lining and the outer layer of the bag met was kind of too wonky and not too nice looking, so I gave it a little stitch. And here I'm trying to put in some string. This is one bag done. And I ended up making another one, this time with red silk and black beads, and with another method where I made little rows instead of long strings. And I actually think this looks a lot better. It doesn't look as chunky, and there's a little more harmony with the beads, as you can see here. With this one, it's really chunky and it kind of moves a little bit too much, where the other one is more, I don't know, it just makes more sense pattern wise, I think. And this is the back of the red one. And here the red is all done. And this is the book where the pattern is, where the bag is in. There's a lot of fun stuff in this book. And there's a dress I really want to make, and there's a cape I really want to make, and yeah. And it's a real antique Edwardian beaded bag where the pattern is taken from. Isn't it just lovely? And you can make it in whatever colors you want. in whatever beads you will have on hand. But yes, this is the book. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!